Hello and welcome again to another episode of Mustard Seed Podcast, where I share practical insight for practical living and all from my everyday life experiences. Thank you for joining me again for this episode of the series we've been considering lessons from my swimming class. Now, today is the third episode. If you've missed the first episode, the second episode, or you miss either of the two episodes, no problem. Don't worry. You can catch up on those episodes. But today is the third episode, and this episode I've titled Just Learn the Basics. The basics. The basics. The basics. Well, learning the basics. Well, what are the basics? And why should we learn them? All that we'll be discussing after this break. Don't go anywhere. Stay with me. Welcome back. And now let's talk about the basics. That's why we are here, isn't it? All right. So you see, when I started taking my son to the swimming classes, there was something really interesting that I also realized. It is that the first few classes, he was just learning the same thing over and over. Hand movement, he was being taught how to move his leg in certain way and all of that. The routine was simple, straightforward, but it was the same thing over and over. And it was so basic, it was hard for me to see any value from those continuous repetition of something that is so basic. Now, while he was in swimmer one, he continued all of these basics, learning these basics. And I stood at the viewing center just watching him over. And I kept waiting for the day that he's going to do what I call actual swimming. Now, don't forget the fact that, and if you saw the first episode, I did mention that there were other kids who were already masters of this game and they were swimming so excellently. And the viewing area just gives you a bird eye view of everything all at once. So you can imagine my frustration as a parent. Every weekend, I come, I see this boy going through the same thing over and over. In fact, the routine was so consistent and continuous that even me myself at that point, I could literally teach him how to do those things. But the problem is that I don't have a pool where I could teach him. But anyways, it was getting more and more frustrating. Even when he got to swimmer two, it's funny because he kept on doing the same thing. And it gets more interesting. Every time they give you the report card, it tells you he's making progress. And somewhere in my head, I'm asking myself, what's progress again? Because all I see is a kid doing the same thing over and over and moving to another class only to continue to do the same thing he's been doing before. So what progress are you talking about? All right. But here where it got really interesting, that when he got to his first part of swimmer three, one day I was standing at the viewing area and I was expecting the routine just as usual. But something amazing happened. They took him to the deepest end of the pool, right? The deepest end of the pool. And he was stripped of his life jacket, and the instructors, asked him to dive into the pool. And I was there watching. What are they doing? He's never done this before. What's going on here? And to be honest, in that moment, my heart literally skipped out of my chest. Like, oh my God, this boy is going to drown. But the truth is, these were experts. They know exactly what they were doing. And to my amazement, this boy dived into the deep. He went down and then he swam, as quickly as possible and came up. And then he continued to swim and he continued to swim. And I was there watching like a movie how this boy had become an excellent swimmer when I cannot take a record of when exactly was he actually learning to swim. But all along, while he was learning the basics, he was actually learning to swim, because ultimately the real swimming is in mastering the basics, right? And the more I think about this, the more I think about how this relates to our spiritual growth. The truth of the matter is, real growth happens every day as we practice basic spiritual disciplines. What kind of discipline? Before I get into the everyday practice that we are supposed to embrace for our growth, let me tell you a really interesting story about a young man. This young man went on a 3-day marathon fasting and prayer, and all he was asking for was for God to show him the secret of spiritual growth and secret of spiritual power. Now, in all of those 3 days, he saw nothing, he heard nothing, he kept on reading the Bible and praying and praying and praying and praying. So on the third day, God asked him to step out of his house. He stepped out of his house, and then he saw all these kids that were playing outside. And they were playing outside, you know how kids play. But they were singing one song that was quite interesting. They kept singing, "Read your Bible, pray every day, pray every day, pray every day. Read your Bible, pray every day if you want to grow." And he took it like, "Oh, okay, that's cute, little kids singing and all of that." He went back in and he continued praying. Said, "God, today is the third day. Won't you speak to me?" And God said, "I just did." And it took him time to be able to come to a realization that what the kids were doing and the song they were singing was a basic message for him about how to actually grow. Why? Because real growth happens in the everyday practice of basic disciplines. What are those practices? Practices like prayer. The truth of the matter is, we don't grow by being able to pray for 7 hours at a stretch, only for us not to come back again for only God knows how many years. We just go and take sabbatical. No, we actually grow by embracing where we are now and being consistent about it. What do I mean? If all you can do right now is being able to pray for 5 minutes, embrace it. But don't stop there. Embrace it in such a way that you are consistent until 5 minutes become 10 minutes, and 10 minutes become 30 minutes, and 30 minutes become 1 hour, and 1 hour become 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. Embrace where you are right now. Don't be comfortable about it. Keep growing, but be consistent about it. In any case, fun fact, you are not likely to have time for those extended prayer time every day. So why don't you embrace the everyday possibilities and be consistent and grow from there? The second one, of course, you guessed right, from the song of those kids, is a regular act of Bible reading and studying. Now, this is really important because that's where God speaks to us every day. Now, I don't want you to read 5 chapters, 10 chapters every day. If all you can commit to is just to one every day, why don't you just commit to that? Meditate on it, digest it until it becomes part of you. And if possible, commit those scriptures to memory. Now, that's how you grow in your walk with God, one day at a time. The other one I need to mention very quickly is the practice of denying yourself in the place of fasting. Now, you don't need to necessarily go on 40 days fast. Well, what is the importance of going on 40 days fast when you are not going to go on another fast for the rest of the year? In fact, for some of us, we've turned fasting into something that we do only at the beginning of the year when there is the excitement of taking the year by force. But that's not how you grow. We grow by actually separating a time of the week. It could be one day in a week where you say, "I'm going to fast. I'm going to deny myself food on this day so that I can focus on speaking with God." Now, you can start by saying, "I'm going to do this from 6 a.m. to 12, and then you can grow from there. But don't forget, the goal is always being consistent and growing steadily. I think one more that I'm going to mention is the discipline of serving and sharing our faith. Now, it is important that we are responsible in our local assembly because that is the way that God keeps us busy so that we don't have extra time for the activities that devil will want to push our way. Also sharing our faith with every opportunity that we get with people in our neighborhood. But I think there is a way you can put discipline around sharing your faith. For instance, do you want to say every week I'm going to step out and I'm going to go to so place and I'm going to share my faith with at least one person. Now, they don't necessarily have to come to your church. Nothing really have to happen, but you need to make sure that you have the discipline of sowing the seed of faith in the heart of people consistently and as consistently as you can do it. So, as you can see, spiritual growth is about consistency. It's not about doing something really big once in a while. No, it's about getting comfortable with the basics. So, my encouragement for you this week is let's start getting comfortable with doing the basics. Let's embrace the repetition of the discipline of repetition of doing the basic things repeatedly, the daily practice and the small step, because it is mastering the basics that we build the foundation for a strong and unshakable faith. So, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Mustard Seed Podcast. Now, if you found this episode inspiring and it blessed you in any way, I want to encourage you to share it with your friend, family, anybody you think can benefit from listening to this as well. It will really go a long way in helping us to help other people to grow as we grow. Now, let's continue to support each other and continue to grow together one day at a time. Until next time, when I come your way again, remember, faith, like a mustard seed, can move mountains. God bless you.